Hey everybody, welcome to Thursday, June 11th. It's 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern. Uh, I'm Hank Linderman. This is Getting Angry. And boy, don't we have plenty of reason to be getting angry. Now that doesn't mean we're going to lose our cool. We're going to maintain our cool at all times because we want to do the right thing. Anyway, I'm your candidate for Congress here in Kentucky's 2nd District. And I'm very glad to be here. I hope you all are happy to be here as well. Um, you know, we've been covering a bunch of things recently. Hey, Barbara, I'm glad you're here. Dennis is here. This is great. And I think I wanted to show you a bunch of things. You know, we're going to follow up on some things today. Uh, One is I wanted to tell you a little bit about. And Barbara, I'm getting angrier too. Bill McNichol is here, by the way. Bill is helping with getting us to spread our message, and it's very important. We have a bunch of reasons to talk about it. So please, everybody, share. If you can share and do a watch party, when you click share, you get the option to start a watch party. We think that helps, and maybe you can even do both. So that really helps make things better. Billy's here. Barbara's here. Dennis is here. Glad you all are here. So I'm running for Congress here in Kentucky's 2nd District. Let me show you the 2nd District because there's going to be some, oh, whoops. Sorry about that. Here you go, Kentucky Congressional District. See the 2, that's the 2nd. And if you look closely, you'll see Grayson County. Hi, Sally, how are you? Um, and I'm up in kind of the northwestern corner of Grayson County, close to the Breckinridge County line. And one of the things that our county is known for is in Litchfield. The city of Litchfield is our county seat. And we have a manufacturer here that makes a great product. When you go to your grocery store, go ahead and pick some up. Have you ever seen this before? The Laughing Cow. This is wonderful spreadable cheese. I got some the other day when I went to the grocery. And I drive past their factory all the time. It's a French company, but they've invested in Litchfield, and so we're, of course, very happy for that. So that's a local product. But let's talk a little bit about Litchfield, because yesterday Litchfield was the site of a protest for Black Lives Matter. You wouldn't think this would be a hot spot for that, because when you get out into the state of Kentucky, there's not a lot of diversity. It's 98.5% white folks, which is cool, it's what it is, but it's rural Kentucky when you get out into the state. But we had an actual protest that, oh, look, Barbara's got some Laughing Cow cheese. So we had a protest yesterday, and I'm going to show you this first. This is the town square. The courthouse is the building that's right in the center. There's kind of a circle, and you drive around the circle, and that distributes you to north, south, east, and west. When you come off the parkway, you head north, and now you're in Litchfield. And to go through town, you got to drive around the courthouse. So these are the activists that showed up. You'll notice not a lot of black faces, but a decent amount of support. And because there's cars driving around, there were also people where I was standing across the street from them, but near me, across the way, kind of to my left, was another group. So I think the group that you can see closest were just kind of curious. I don't know how they felt about things one way or the other. They didn't express anything. But over to the left, you notice the folks standing with a sign up, and they were yelling at the Black Lives Matter people. Every time the Black Lives Matter people would shout Black Lives Matter, they'd shout All Lives Matter. And so they had kind of a debate, but it was mostly a lot of shouting that went back and forth. And we go back to the first picture. The black man with the megaphone in his hand, he's in the center of the picture, said some great things. He said, look, all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter. That was his point. And that's one of the best ways of expressing that I've heard. So I just thought that was fascinating. Anyway, let's go have a look at what's going on daily. Here's some numbers. We're still close to 1,000 deaths yesterday in the United States and 21,000 new cases. Kentucky had only 7 new deaths, but the point of that is we are not getting rid of this thing anytime soon. It's still quite involved. We're going to be a while before we're finished with this. One of the things that's confusing about this is that the stock market seems to be generally doing super well. And I've been hearing a lot of discussion about this. And there's several things. First of all, it's not the market's job to worry about this. They're trying to figure out business futures. And in this story that was today in the New York Times, here's a quote from Paul Krugman. It makes some sense that despite the terrible economic news, but it says, pay no attention to the Dow. Keep your eyes on those disappearing jobs. That's really the important thing. And I think this is Mr. Armstrong up at the top, who is from Financial Times. The asset-owning classes have felt relatively little pain. That's a nice way of saying the rich folks are they're still doing okay. And they also know that they're going to be bailed out. So since they know they're going to be bailed out, no wonder the stock market's doing okay. So that's that. This is what the New York Times headlines looked like today. And I want you to notice something. I thought this was fascinating that there's nothing, Trump's name gets mentioned, but there's no Trump says this story. And I can't think of a time when that hasn't been one of the main stories. Trump says this. And we've seen President Trump try to change the subject from Black Lives Matter to all sorts of things. And his latest attempt actually did show up in the Washington Post. Here's their headlines for today. Threatens to take back Seattle as protesters set up an autonomous zone. But again, it's not there's another story, Trump's rage at another governor makes him look weak and pathetic. This is criticism of Trump, but while he's the subject of the story, he's not controlling the narrative. And this is something unusual for the first time that I've seen in the Trump administration. I'm also going to show you, I normally try to save the oops discussion or something funny for the end, but let's do it now. What the heck, it's Thursday. Oops, the GOP rolled over their platform from 2016, and there was something like more than 3 dozen unflattering references to those in power at the White House that condemn the current president. So this is supposedly because the GOP is changing their location for their convention has been moved away from North Carolina. And I'm trying to remember where it has been moved to, but this process of moving it around has caused some problems. Now, I want to tell you, we're going to move over here to, I want you to have a look at the contract for rural America. And these are the headlines of it for rural and working America. And this is a set of aspirational goals that I think are going to be important. So far, no one has gathered all these together in the same way that I have, and we're going to be using this as we go forward, and we want to publicize this as much as possible. And the reason for that is that much of America doesn't understand how important rural America is, especially as it relates to why we have President Trump. The reality is that both parties have not done a good job for rural America. And so let's see, I'm going to talk about just one of these today. But before we get there, I'm going to go back to our main page so we can look at each other. Rural America has been let go, really, for quite some time, and it's been taken advantage of. And you all may not know much about the 2nd District, but I'm going to tell you some quick things about it. It's the home of the Everly Brothers. It's the home of bluegrass music. Some would argue about that. They're wrong. It's the home of bourbon, which is well loved throughout the world. It's the home of Fort Knox. It's the home of Mammoth Cave. It's where every Corvette is manufactured, that they're all being manufactured in Bowling Green. And it's also Abraham Lincoln's birthplace. So this should be a district that everybody in the United States would know about, but for some reason they don't. This is an undiscovered gem. And part of it is because the district has been, in my opinion, taken advantage of by the Koch brothers, for example. This is one of the first places where right to work really got into effect. So unions are very discouraged here in the second district, and that's resulted in very low wages and long hours being worked. In fact, Owensboro was named at one point the second highest amount of hours worked and lowest wages paid in the United States for a similar city. So that's not a great list to be on. This is why I've come up with the contract for rural and working America. And the reason that I believe the reason we have President Trump is that Democrats, when they were in power, didn't do a great job taking care of rural and working America. In fact, in the 90s, we kind of moved away from being the party that would keep Wall Street in check, that would be the party that would stand up for working people, and we need to recover our roots here. And Republicans have focused on what we call the 4Gs, God, guns, gays, and gynecology, meaning abortion. They focused on that, but they haven't really delivered on much of that except for guns. And neither party wants to do anything about restricting the use of guns, and that's a whole separate discussion. But it means that wages have remained low and opportunity has remained low. And so some of the things we need to do for the good of America and for the good of rural America are in my list, my contract. Now, one of the most important pieces is rural broadband. Most of you probably don't know this, but 30% of the United States doesn't have broadband. They just don't have access to it, and by this I mean robust, strong. You can get on the internet, you can watch a movie, you can fill out a job application, you can catch up on the latest news, you can communicate with your family, and so on. You can watch this podcast. So that's a real disadvantage. And if you live in a city, you might feel like, in rural America, they don't really know what's going on. Well, in some cases it might be true because they don't have broadband here. And worse than that, or not worse than that, in addition, we don't have very good cell phone coverage. So when you drive through rural America or rural Kentucky, and in the second district in particular, you can have a phone call going for about 5 minutes and then it cuts off and you got to call back and it's a big bother. This doesn't have to be this way. This is also part of our problem with allowing a profit to be earned as much as possible. That's the Achilles heel of what's going on in our country. We insist on profit time and time and time again. It's the number one goal. I say to people all the time, I don't care what church you go to, doesn't matter, but America's religion is profit. It's the biggest quarterly profit. It's the cheapest price of an item that we want to buy, and it's the biggest number on the stock market. But when you focus on that as your priority, other things fall behind, like the stability of your country, like the health of your people, like the cost of college education. And all of these mean that we need to readjust the way we do things. So let's talk briefly about rural broadband. The nation of India used to be something like, I don't know, 167th, or no, they were, I'm exaggerating, they were pretty far down in terms of rural broadband, and it took them 10 years and they made it a national priority. They are now number one in installed broadband infrastructure, and we could do that. We should do that as a federal program. It would just make so many things great for people. It means that, for example, if you work for Apple but you live in Los Angeles and you don't want to spend, you're mostly telecommuting, you could live in Bowling Green in the second district with robust broadband and do your job here. And we're seeing through the coronavirus, of course, a lot of people are working from home. So I think that's one way that we need to go forward. I believe this needs to be a national program, because if we wait for for-profit companies to do it, they just won't do it. One of my neighbors who can afford it checked with getting internet in her, down her kind of side street. $2,000 was the cost. That's crazy. It shouldn't be like that. So that's one of the pieces of the contract for rural and working America. Anyway, that's it. That's all I've got going for today. Thank you all for being here. Please do go ahead and share this. We're going to be talking about how to bring the country forward, how to move the country forward, because I believe President Trump is going to lose this November. I believe there's even a possibility that he may resign before November. That's a possibility. You heard it here first, although there are some newspapers starting to call for it. So anyway, I need your help. Share the video. Visit our website and contribute a little bit of money. It all makes a big difference. And stay angry, get angry, and use that as a way to focus yourself to do the right thing for your country. By the way, if you are in the state of Kentucky and you have not registered to vote by mail, you cannot, you can't delay here. You've only got till the 15th to ask for your voting by mail. And I believe I'll check in on how you do that. But the way you do it, I believe, is go to Kentucky.gov website and look for filing your mail-in vote, your absentee vote. Anyway, you've only got till the 15th, so it's only a few more days. I will see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, is Friday, so it's the last one of the week. I might even have my wine glass ready to go or my bourbon cup ready to go. We will see. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to put the picture of the contract back up, and I love you all. Thank you for being here. We'll talk to you later.